Hello everyone, welcome back to Newcastle Fans TV. Due to audio issues, the last word is getting done remotely, but it doesn't matter because Newcastle have just beaten Norwich City by 3-0.
Newcastle Fans TV.
Yes, welcome back to the last word, and where Newcastle United have scored 3 goals at home, and they've beaten Norwich City, the new Premier League Norwich City, by 3-0. So as I mentioned just earlier on, it was getting done at St James's Park, me, Josh and Harry, but because of audio issues, it's now me, Josh and Lee. But you've seen Lee and Liam doing the match reaction earlier on, so if you haven't seen that video, give that a watch before you give the last word a watch. But to start things off, we'll look at the first half, and to talk all things first half is Josh.
Felt like the team that Bruce went with was actually pretty strong to start the game. I felt like the right idea was there in playing Murphy and Ritchie as wing backs. I felt like the 3 centre backs were a weak link. I didn't feel like Kraft has or ever will be a Premier League player, and I felt like Freddy was off the pace today as well. I didn't feel like he sort of had the best pre-season, stepped in where he should. Kieran Clark looked fantastic. He always looks fantastic for me. I think he's one of our strongest centre halves, and Matt Ritchie looked good over 90 minutes. But in the first half, I just felt like Newcastle were completely off the boil. I've never seen a Premier League team with such a bad first touch throughout the whole 11. I felt like there was no conviction there. I felt like there was no game plan. I felt like nothing was going right during that first half. I felt like there was so much negativity. Whether that was the fact they were playing in front of a home crowd for the first time in such a long time, or whether that was just pre-match nerves and they didn't want to put a foot wrong. But I just felt like it wasn't quite there. I felt like there was a lot more they could have done in that first half to show the fans that they do want to step forward, and especially at home. St James's Park should be a fortress for us, and I just felt like there was nothing there. I felt like the midfield had no leadership and was weak. Unfortunately, I felt like Joe Linton was poor today, especially first half. I know he got dragged off at the start of the second half, but first half his touch was horrendous. His movement was awful, and he just didn't want to get involved. I felt like you could sense that Miggy was tired. He's had a long summer, and I felt like he wasn't ready to come back. I hope he doesn't start against West Ham, to be honest, because I don't feel like he's there with the team yet. Definitely an impact sub, but in terms of what he brought in the first half, I don't think he could be a starter against West Ham. I felt like he was severely off the boil. But I felt like the first half we just didn't seem to want it, and then it all changed at the start of the second half. But for me, I felt like Bruce pretty much got it right in terms of team selection. I didn't think Maxi was ready to start. I was surprised Callum Wilson was in there, and he looked good. It's nice to see him in a number 9 shirt. It's nice to see him pushing defenders, and to hear him physically giving it to the team around him was fantastic. And I'll give Bruce his credit. I sat right near him, and he spent the whole first half hollering instructions at the team, which I haven't seen very much of and I've not heard very much of. So to actually physically be there and see it was nice to see. But yeah, not the best first half, a typical Newcastle performance where the first half was probably the weakest link. So hopefully we can fix that and move into the new season.
So that was the first half, and it wasn't the best, as Josh perfectly explained, but it was a lot better in the second half, and the substitutes made a massive difference. Lee, what did those substitutes do to change the game?
I'm here to talk about the second half, so let's get cracking. First things first, the substitutions at half time made a massive difference. It was Ryan Fraser, it was John Joe Shelby, and we're seeing Alan Saint-Maximin. Massive difference, bit of quality to this Newcastle side, which we have been lacking in pre-season, especially since this is the first time that Bruce has had all of his attacking options available. Josh was saying that Miggy didn't flatter to deceive, but that is his first game back in the first half. Obviously he came off, Sean Longstaff came off as well, and so did Joe Linton. But ESM was loving it. He was applauding the crowd. He was giving it back. He was, you know what ESM's like. He was showboating. He was running at defenders. He causes massive problems. My criticism of him is he needs goals and assists. And there was a point in the second half where he was through on goal, and a clinical striker like Callum Wilson puts that away. ESM was too dilly-dallying to get tackled. So that's my only criticism of ESM. But he's a talent. He gets us up that pitch, and it'll be interesting to see if we can get a fully fit season from Ryan Fraser this season. He needs a season for me. His Newcastle career is on the line this season. If he doesn't perform this season, I think he'll be out the door. So, but although it was promising that Newcastle had creating a lot more chances, Shelby was getting on the ball a lot more. Shelby has his critics, but he was getting the ball, he was making things happen with his through balls outside the boot and everything. Great to get off the mark from Matt Ritchie fairly in early on in the second half. And Norwich, to be fair, didn't test Woodman, who played the full 90. Didn't test him at all. So he will probably start the season as number one goalkeeper, depending on Carl Dollows. How is he feeling about long COVID? He is back in training, so another week. Who knows? It'll be interesting to see first game of the season. Second goal, great finish, great through ball. Dwight, Gayle, what a finish that was. Brilliant. Brilliant finish. I missed a couple of the goals because I was chatting to the other half. But the third one, Dwight, Gayle, again, he's given Bruce food for thought. He's got a brace now in this game, and if we can keep him fit, he's an alright option off the bench. I still feel that we need strikers or goals, which Jonny's going to talk about, through the door. We've got to get them through the door. It's great, it looks good that we've won 3-0, but Norwich are going to finish somewhere around about or underneath us in the table. We played Burnley in that secret friendly the other day, didn't score there. We know where the problem lies. It looked a lot easier second half because we had more quality on the pitch. But what happens when we get injuries? What happens when we have niggles, when we have suspensions? That's what I'm worried about. Can we break down in Norwich City if we lose a Jonny Shelvey, or we lose a Callum Wilson, or an ASM? No is the answer. That's why we've got to get bodies through the door. It looks comfortable 3-0, and it was second half. Norwich didn't test the goalkeeper, as I say. They need a striker desperately. They're going to get doing if they didn't sort themselves out for goals. But overall, Bruce, to look at and think 3-0, great performance to end pre-season. Can we then take it into West Ham? Because that's the big one. West Ham have loads of quality. Put 6 past Celtic, man. And our Celtic are not the side of what they used to be, but still Celtic. I mean, West Ham will come to St James's Park feeling confident they'll pick up 3 points, and they should. It wouldn't be surprised if we get played off the pitch next week. But having said that, we go again. We'll dust ourselves down. What about you, Jonny?
Yes, and Dwight Gayle's 2 goals made it 3-0 to Newcastle. And it was a comfortable victory in the end, which is what you want in terms of pre-season. I don't really look into pre-season too much. I think if you could win every single game pre-season and then lose the first game of the season, you're always thinking, could we have done any more? It has been a mixed bag in terms of pre-season results. And I think Newcastle are slowly but surely trying to find a rhythm. And I think that's the most important thing, getting minutes in the legs of the players. One thing that we do need is new recruits and transfers. And Steve Bruce has been talking post-match about that. He says that he really wants to try and get a player or a couple of key targets in before next week or before the end of the transfer window. Joe Willock, of course, is the obvious one. We all know that Joe Willock is Steve Bruce's number one target. He did so well towards the back end of the season when he arrived in January. But Arsenal just don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. They don't know whether to take the money, send it out on loan, or keep him. And I think it's obviously frustrating in terms of a Newcastle fan, but hopefully we can hear a decision one way or another. I think it's going to get to a stage where, like Steve Bruce has said, we might need to move on to other targets. Who are those other targets? I think one player that could be a target, I'm kind of not making it up, but it would make sense, as Ross Barkley, who was obviously still at Chelsea, obviously at a loan to Aston Villa last season. He's played a little bit of pre-season, but Callum Wilson, who was obviously going to be starting every single game for Newcastle in the Premier League, highly rates him. He has got something about him, but it's just keeping him fit. Now, do Newcastle take a gamble on a player like a Ross Barkley? Remains to be seen. When I was talking to Josh and Harry, Josh mentioned at the last word at St James's Park, which had said there's a need for a right back, and I'm sure Sam Milner's just waiting to bite about a right back, but we could do with a new right back just to kind of give ourselves a few options. Like Jacob Murphy is the right wing back option number 1, but it's not a natural position for him. You've got the likes of Javier Manquillo is kind of number 2 now, and Emil Kraft that's been moved into centre back as well. So right back could be an option in terms of right backs that Newcastle could go for. I'm thinking maybe someone like Tanganga from Spurs, Jaffa Tanganga, who, you know, is a young lad, could do with probably a year playing for a Premier League team. It could work. I think he is a player has been highly rated over the years, but I think we could just maybe need that, maybe a little bit of pace and something a little bit different as well. He's a strong lad as well, so I don't think that's something that's completely out of the question. But they're probably the 2 key areas that Newcastle need to focus on, along with a striker. We do need another striker. I know Dwight Gayle scored 2 goals, but always picks up an injury, same as Callum Wilson, to be fair, and we're not too sure if he's Premier League proven. So, in terms of options, who do Newcastle go for in terms of striking options? It's a big dilemma. Do they look at the top 6, which Steve Bruce has kind of said, and say who's not going to get games in terms of striking options? Again, could you look at a Michy Batshuayi from Chelsea? That's someone off the top of my head. Hasn't really done it at Crystal Palace, but would probably move for game time. He needs game time, and he's not the worst option to have. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments with Michy Batshuayi, Ross Barkley and Jaffa Tangang in terms of 3 players that potentially Steve Bruce could look at in terms from now until the end of the transfer window. But it's just a week left until the season starts. The season starts a week tomorrow, Sunday the 15th of August, as Newcastle take on West Ham at 2 o'clock. So make sure you watch all the videos leading up to that game. There will be a preview. There might even be a Greenwood and Mullin show next week as well, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But until then, we'll see you next Sunday.